Hey everybody, it's Cody Kessler with this week's edition of KLA Now, coming to you live from the Rockville, Maryland office of KLA Homebridge Financial. Today we're going to talk about a topic that we hear a lot about. A lot of people are always calling us first-time home buyers, and they're always asking about what kind of first-time home buyer programs are there out there, what do I get as a first-time home buyer, all these kinds of things. And the first thing I want to start with is there's an enormous amount of misconceptions that go along with that. Because to be honest with you, there really aren't that many first-time homebuyer programs. There are incentives. There are things that first-time homebuyers get, but there are very limited programs that are specifically designed and only for people who are buying a home for the first time. So a lot of these things, a lot of mortgage companies take programs, they market them as first-time homebuyers. And I'll give you some examples. So FHA. Everybody knows about FHA. They market FHA as a first-time homebuyers program, but it doesn't mean that you can't be or have to be a first-time homebuyer to take advantage of that program. So it's marketing that they put out there to get people to call them. It's the old call to action, smoke and mirrors, and to be honest with you. But the real thing that you need to know is what deems it viable for a first-time homebuyer. So let's go back and actually talk about the one thing, or at least in the state of Maryland, that you get as a first-time homebuyer. This is the incentive. This is the credit that if you are buying a home in the state of Maryland and you're a first-time homebuyer, that you are absolutely going to get. It's the 25%, 0.25 of the state transfer tax. So when you buy a house, you're being taxed at 50%, half a percent, and half of that's going to go to the seller, half of that's going to go to the buyer. As a first-time homebuyer, you get that credited to you. So you don't have to pay any of that. Outside of that, ladies and gentlemen, there really isn't much that you're going to get or should be expecting as a first-time homebuyer. So if you're not using some of the programs or things that I'm going to talk about today, you get nothing else. So first, let's talk about programs. We mentioned FHA earlier. There are other programs such as Fannie Mae, their standard 97%. There's other types of programs, but mainly what they're talking about is just reduced down payment requirements. They might need 3% or 3.5% rather than a 5%. A lot of people have a misconception that they need 20% to buy a house, which is not true in and of itself. But first-time homebuyer programs like the Fannie Mae standard 97%, that program is only available if you're a first-time homebuyer. That's it. Nobody else can use those things. So that's really the one program that if you are a first-time homebuyer, you can take advantage of that when nobody else can. Beyond that, you're talking about things like reduced mortgage insurance that go along with the program. But there really isn't any other benefit to being a first-time homebuyer. There are other things that you can take advantage of, such as down payment assistance. Now, this is really where a lot of the emphasis gets put on when you are a first-time homebuyer. How do I come up with cash for closing? Because a lot of first-time homebuyers, they haven't been around long enough to save up a ton of money, or every single dime that they have is actually going to go into the purchase. So let's talk about some of these down payment assistance programs, or more commonly known as DPA. So one of the main ones in Maryland is the MMP, or Maryland Mortgage Program. It's a great program. There's tons of information on this. Things like forgivable loans, loans at low interest rate where they're deferred payments, employee or employer matches, and lots of other different types of programs where people can match a down payment. But there's lots of good stuff there. So go to, you ready for this? mmp.maryland.gov, and you can find out all the information for that specific program. There's also one called the HOC, or which is specifically in Montgomery County. They've got, again, loans, a 5-for-5 program where you can borrow up to 5% of the purchase price at a 5% interest rate, and it's, again, for payments. City of Gaithersburg has a great down payment assistance program. You can get up to $12,000 there for down payment. Washington, D.C., they have D.C. Open Doors, designed for first-time home buyers, but not specifically for first-time home buyers. And then there's also HPAP, which that's a huge first-time home buyer program in Washington, D.C. Virginia Virginia has a first-time homebuyer program as well. It's called VHCD. Again, you can take advantage of this if you are a first-time homebuyer, but it's not specifically for it. You do have to do or live in these places to take advantage of it. So just make sure that the best way to go about doing it, and I know that this sounds trivial, Google first-time homebuyer programs in Virginia. You're going to find the same type of information that I just gave you, but feel free to do so. If you have any questions, obviously you can hit us up as we are live right now. Do we have any questions? We got one today. I'm a veteran. I have heard that it helps me buy a home. Do I need a special lender? Well, being a veteran is not obviously really determined by first-time home buying. So if you are a veteran, you get the same program as anybody else who is a veteran. It goes to 100%. No down payment is required as long as you have the type of eligibility that is needed by the VA program. So that's really, it does help you get into a home. You don't need any cash, but there are specific requirements that are needed for a VA loan. We can cover that. VA loans, there's tons of information that goes with VA. We can do that on another segment of KLA now. But if anybody has any questions in regards to it, if you're a first-time home buyer out there and you really want to know what the accurate information, what the truth is, feel free to give us a call. You don't have to be getting a loan from us. We'll be more than happy to give you the information that you're looking for to make sure that you're getting pointed in the right direction. So that's it for today's episode of KLA Now. Thank you as always for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one.